Become a member and support the channel. Old World Tactics, Battle Reports, the 2 Plus podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the 2 Plus podcast. I am Paddy. I'm joined again by Alex, and we're today going to talk about the old world once again. We are fresh off running a 1,000-point tournament, and there's been a lot of tournament chatter around our local scene that's driving a few topics in our conversations, and I think it's a good time to start talking about what people are expecting when they go to these tournaments or events, whatever you want to call them, and how TOs can facilitate a playing environment that people want to play Warhammer, or a way of Warhammer that people want to play. So, Alex, thanks for being here again. We, last weekend, ran a 1,000-point tournament. 11 players after a couple of drops, but the inspiration behind running a 1,000-point tournament was we, as in literally you and me, enjoy rolling dice, having moments, and sometimes taking Warhammer a little less seriously. But the restraints of Warhammer the Old World, the rule set, etc., kind of limit the ability to do that even when you drop it down to 1,000 points. But there were some definite insights from that day, positives, I would say, that came from it. How did you find the day?
Yeah, I thought there was. I don't think we changed. I think we fixed Warhammer.
No.
But I thought it looked great. I thought that the mats being split into was pretty good, to tell you the truth. Like, better than I expected. We'd done games, and that had been the revealing thing to me, that the 3 foot by 4 foot game was sort of just half a game. And I think that was true. I think from the point of view of someone who's tried to organize tournaments, it was pleasing that you could do it pretty easily. The game didn't lose a lot, and it still looked pretty good. And on top of that, having people play side by side in these sorts of lanes was frictionless in many ways. If anything, too little friction. I was hoping there would be more sort of to and fro in games, I suppose, but that was one of the interesting things, that there wasn't. People just seem to lock in to their own game and are not too interested in the one that's happening to the left or to the right of them.
Yeah, and it's worth saying, even though it was 1,000 points, there was still the limitation of 25% characters only, so 250 points total to be spent on characters, which created an added restriction to list building. I'll show some photos in a second, but what do you think 1,000 points did to list building? What do you think the armies looked like as a result of it?
Yeah, as you say, so 25% characters. On top of that, you could only take 1 unit of each entry, so there weren't any double ups, which I guess in core could have been an issue for some people, where there was a 19 skink unit, and that's the only option they had, really, to do that. I think people sort of chose to take combat lords. We talked about this beforehand, where the level 4s or combat lords were the way to go, and a level 4 won the tournament, or the only level 4 won the tournament. And underneath that, I think people took cavalry that had swift stride, and some of the games ended up cavalry versus cavalry countercharge situation. So that was interesting. In the games that I played, like, I only played 2. I think you only played 3 due to the odd number. I think that there is a bit of a metagame around this where, like, playing for combat wins is very unpredictable in the old world. We were hoping that the games would be more combat heavy and more bash 'em up, which would sort of match some of the games we'd played earlier. In hindsight, looking back on that, I guess I have played those sorts of beastmen and even lizardmen armies that have single units and I don't have a lot of 20 strong gores or things like that running around. So when it got to these, as you can see from the photos you're showing, when it got to these games, there were lots of to and fro's in combat. And unfortunately, I don't think the rules really help you in that regard. So in the list I played, I had some magic missile stuff. In the end, I think that's sort of the antidote to heavy magic armies. However, I think people had a lot of fun, and I think you could come up with some interesting things at 1,000 points, including Paddy Gallagher, who's I think it Knights of the Blazing Sun or Fiery Heart. I think I wanted them to be Fiery
Blazing
Heart,
Sun.
but they're
It was
Blazing
Blazing
Sun.
Sun.
Yeah.
Fiery Heart is. If you thought Blazing Sun was bad, Fiery Heart is atrocious.
We've got a soft spot for these orders of knights that run around the Empire, but I thought she just had a very evocative army. I think there's a close up in there somewhere, but that you, in her own words, probably couldn't run at a higher points count.
Yeah, so Paddy was the winner of our best army. I think I forget what you labeled it, but it was a combination of best painted, list theme, and essential just like creativity.
It's a good way of putting it.
You can see, so Paddy is a mainstay of the Australian tournament scene. She has printed, painted, and created a theme for this army specifically for this tournament. And so this is her Knights of the Blazing Sun over here with Sol Invictus, which she has obviously created, which is incredible.
Yeah,
on the banner there. This is half of her army. She also had a cannon, I think, and maybe something else. And this is running against Mike, the Oracle, his 1,000 point Heralds of Darkness list. But this right here is a prime example of what you see at 1K events. Heralds are getting a little bit of steam underneath them, but not at uber competitive levels. But I think people are kind of interested in them. But I haven't heard of anyone playing the Blazing Sun just yet. And she ended up coming second and winning the best army, so a double boon for her. But here are some of the other armies as well. And I think what you can really see is they don't look like your 2,000 point armies. Obviously, there's half of them, but the unit types that are being brought here are different. The Bretonians, 2 giant blobs of Knights of the Realm and a unit of Grail Knights. This was a pretty standard, strong chaos list, but nonetheless interesting. A dwarf gun line here, but like I feel like one thing that was understated as well in 1,000 is you really got to see paint work. Like 2,000 you see a theme, but 1,000 you see more individual models, and the level of painting at this tournament, even for 1,000 points, was really encouraging and really refreshing, I thought. And this right here is Dave, who you just mentioned, who's the eventual winner, running a level 4. And some Peg Knights, but Knights of the Realm, Peasant Bowman, and a Trebuchet against Pete Jenkins, who's our local Lizardmen player. Maybe not sole Lizardman player soon. We'll get to that later.
The return.
Yeah. But this tape down the line, as you mentioned, we were playing the normal sized board cut in half, and you play next to another table. I was expecting a bit more interaction, but there was just so much. Like, Warhammer is such an intense focus game that it's so easy to just ignore everything around you. Where you've had the idea of running some teams events and the like in this format, which might encourage that collaboration and, cross like 4 people enjoying a game on one table, which I think would go a long way for people's enjoyment in Warhammer and kind of bring the tone down a little bit. But on that point, what do you think? So we got the opportunity to observe because you played 2 games, I played 3. There was a 4-round tournament. How do you think people kind of took to this 1,000 point format in terms of what was their play style?
Well, that surprisingly just took it in their stride. So we're dealing with some limitations in organising the tournament where I've organised these tournaments sort of pretty quickly without a lot of lead in. That's something I think for the next one, it'll probably be 2 or 3 months before we do something different for that to try to build those numbers. We're also operating out of a store, and we appreciate everything David does for the store, for us, but there's probably a hard limit on 12 players, maybe 16 for this sort of thing where there are less boards. So that's another side of it. I think there were good things that came out of it, like Sundays being probably it was sort of an idea that maybe Saturdays were the only day and Sundays were all right. people just seem to turn up as well and play the same way that they were playing 2000. And I don't know whether that's a competitive crowd. That's not what we were going for, but I guess that's what we've talked about, that it just can't be a vibe. You've got to have some sort of design. And I had definitely designed, well, the parts that I'd designed for this event to try to get a more casual game. I think the game actually lets us down there, sadly. I think people still had a good time, but I think we're getting to the point with Old World that it's not what you want it to be. It is what it is at the moment, and people are generally having a good time with it anyway. I think when we get through this pod, by the end of it, things are on the up, at least in Western Sydney. But I think in general, I was just a bit surprised that people still took it as seriously. I thought people would have taken more of an opportunity to play maybe, I wouldn't say lists were optimized, but I think people played lists that they thought they could win with, not, I'll get out. Like you and I had taken units that we wanted to try, and they were weak for me. The ones that were like flesh hounds are bad. The Juggernaut General was bad. And they probably are what cost me that game against Dave, to tell you the truth. But it's, it is what it is.
Alex, have you ever seen a level 2 branchweight general running illusion with a great weapon?
I wish it had come good for you, Paddy. I really do. And that's what I was a little bit disappointed in. It's not the players, it's the game at the moment. I do think, I've played Swordmasters a lot. I'm looking at my Ripidactyls thinking, I'd love to be able to do it. And you just can't. It's too cut and thrust, the game at the moment. And I think it's a good format. I'm going to revisit it. I'm definitely going to be doing something with teams, as you say. Like, I'm going to try to force the casual nature of it. I just think there's a lot of 2,000 points running around anyway. As much as people love it, it is logistically very expensive to run a 2,000 point tournament. Underneath that, I think we've got it to a point where it does look great, and if people can sort of paint up 1,000 points of something distinctive, I think that's fantastic. And yeah, like, you can't really complain. Like, there's just fiddly things with the rules, and sadly, getting into with combat, there's just more of it than I liked. I thought there'd be less of it. There's more of it. So yeah, that it was a good day, but I think it didn't change the world in terms of we discovered a new format that was going to everyone should be playing this instead of 2,000 points.
Yeah, and this is, so you've spoken about the rules kind of limiting the play style, essentially. Like, a lot of people want Warhammer Evolved, and I'm not one of those players from 20 years ago. The Old World is essentially my first Warhammer game, despite playing with you when I was about 10 years old. But this, to me, I think is what a lot of people, this image on screen is what a lot of people would, if you saw box art that looked like this, you'd be like, oh yeah, that looks like Warhammer. But there's like 2 blocks of infantry front on, one of them getting flanked, and then some elite infantry up against a chariot, a demon riding chariot, and then a flanking unit of cavalry on the side. But what unfolds after this, when the infantry inevitably get wiped, or not wiped, actually, that's actually the part that's interesting, is they don't get wiped, they kind of run away in a weird direction and stop the flow of battle. So this was your third game against Michael. Sorry, your second game, or first game, actually, against Michael.
First game, yeah.
Yeah. And you can see here, they're your pink horrors and your flesh hounds, is that right? Against Dark Elf Spearmen. So what was the interaction here that was kind of jarring? Because I watched it, because this was the round I sat out.
Well, Michael sort of knew that he was sort of out, that my list was probably better. He'd brought one of those armies, in his own words, that was his dream army as a child. So, has Dark Elf Spearmen, and they looked fantastic, as you can see. I don't know if people can do a close-up. If they're listening, you can see it on YouTube. But it looked wonderful, and he got the first turn, pushed everything forward. On the left, I've killed off some cold ones, which, probably played a lot more Old World than Michael. I was like, they're the only threat I have to worry about. The other stuff's just toughness 3. And that was the case. They got charged. Everything got in. And, I killed a whole bunch of toughness 3 stuff. What happened, though, is there were probably half of the models left. And then I've complained elsewhere about Pursuit. being that problem where one of the units is going to get in the way. And that's what happened here too. If you see this Fleshhound's pink horror block, that's probably the gross one. What happens is they've got to squirt out away from the highest unit strength. So really they run through the Fleshhounds into the woods. So they take the peril test or whatever, which is whatever for starters, and maybe like lost another guy or something like that. Yeah. And then I can charge. Sorry, I can follow up, but the unit behind them isn't going to be able to make contact because of the Fleshhounds or something. And it just is a mess. Like whatever happened, I don't know if we got it completely right, but I won by a lot. I wasn't able to sort of follow up in any sort of advantageous way. If anything, my units then got stuck in this strange formation. The cold ones could hit the cold one that was left. I think he had a hero, would have threatened that side, and I probably was out of position. So yeah, it was that. I saw that all across lots of different tables throughout the day. We've sort of talking about pursuit and the silliness of multiple units, but whenever there's a multiple unit combat, I think the rules break down. And give ground particularly is not great. It just seems to create more problems than immersion. Fallback in good order. I love the idea of fallback in good order, but there seems to be a lot of gamey stuff around it still about you getting to reform, the other guy not getting to reform. You can't really position flanks needing to be in the front arc. That changes everything. So yeah, like to me, it's not the combat game you thought it was. I'd like to have combats. To be fair, when I'd played, like I didn't play a lot either back in the day, but you had a lot more. My main experience is units used to just run away from rolling an 11 on panics a lot more often. And combats would just be, one thing would roll through the flank of everything. So it may never have existed, that sort of game, I'm not sure. But I think this idea of the Death Star infantry block, it maybe just be that you can't really run more than one infantry block anyway, because you just can't tell what's going to happen next. It's not that you shouldn't, like some armies like dwarfs, you're so stuffed, but I just don't think it's so unpredictable that if you're trying to play with skill, you can't even say, if I throw 3 units in here, I'm going to win for sure. You just don't know. They could go 2 inches back, they could go 6 inches back. That can wreck all your arcs. You can then end up having your flank exposed and you're being hit in the side. And that unit's escaping. So otherwise, so the game I played against Dave where we didn't do a lot of that was like the type of Warhammer I've been playing, that sort of movement and shooting, try to weaken something until you can hit it and it's going to stay dead. And that felt more like where the skill of the game is at the moment.
And congratulations to Dave, who was the eventual winner, running as Bretonia. He was one of the lists we kind of pointed out at the start. We thought the Warriors of Chaos list, John, who ended up dropping out, and probably Dave. Well, I had a soft spot for John. Not sure how you felt. But Dave, I thought, had a strong list for the 1K setting. He was the only guy that took a level 4 and a reserve move level 4 at that, which proved very, very powerful. But all in all, it was a successful day and good Warhammer was had. And I think it 2K still scratches the itch of Warhammer. 1K, to me, I could play 4 1K games, which I almost did on that day. I played 3. And although I was kind of like, drained from playing Warhammer, something was still missing because 2K brings that level of grandeur. Is that the word? Like it's the scale just is a lot more immersive. 1K is good for a little bash 'em up. But the flaws of the game they're still there, and they're almost easier to hide at 2K because the board is bigger and there's less of that. I mean, again, I'm a Wood Elf player, so a little bit biased. I don't have as many combats as other people. I don't see the fallback in good order and kick ground as often as other people do. But 1K was there plain sight in almost every game because I got to watch in that round I didn't play. Which was interesting.
Yeah, I think that the Wood Elf thing is overblown. We've talked about it before. I think lots more armies play like Wood Elves than people think. And I know No, don't have to launch into a full-throated
No,
defense here.
launch. I will not stop you. I will.
What they're
I'll mute.
missing is
How
that
about I
you don't
mute
have
myself?
you don't have the 24 unit infantry.
Yeah.
Like the fallback in good order thing is great, but your unit doesn't die. And so if there's someone who's played high elves, like if you can't stick around, like if you don't break them, your strength 3, toughness 3 guys just start melting. Which is okay, like if there was some sort of balance to it. But I think when there's like 50 strong units out there, you can't even get them down to 8 and then try to mop them up with a few extra bows. So that movement side of it isn't there. I think that's sort of, that part of the game in 1K was still there. Like you couldn't really you could take a skirmish level army and that would probably have done better in the format still, because I think that's just what the game is. And I had another look at the world team championships that's running on Warhol at the moment, and that's probably just the theme. Like no one you take one big block, maybe it shoots poison,
Yeah.
or it's carrying some sort of like awesome buffs that means it's really hard to kill, like in Scream's list or something. But on top of that, I just think, that's where we're at the game. And when we get to maybe later on talking about the list that we've got for the next 2K, I think it's more the norm to have one big infantry defensive unit and these flanking type units and shooters than that sort of 3 to 5 infantry block list anymore. Like even if we're in dwarfs, aren't gyrocopters sort of the best unit? I think people think they're pound for pound the
And
best. It
Iron
might not be in the
Drakes.
best army, but Iron Drakes maybe,
Yeah. Which that tells you a lot about the game system, which is fine, but I think people kind of have to accept it, or TOs have to get creative with packs to create different settings to.
Well, I don't think you can go too far the other way, is probably what I'd say from 1K, is that you can't unbalance the game towards infantry because the rules don't work to support them. It's not just the strength 3, toughness 3, 4+ to hit, 5+ to wound stuff. It's the fallbacks in good order, the give grounds. They just don't do anything. Like they hold.
They're not grindy. Like
no,
like you're lucky if combats go for 2 to 3 rounds with lots of infantry, because more likely than not, you're going to fall back in order through a unit and end up on the other side of the battlefield.
That's right. And if someone is falling back, it's not. You don't know who's got the advantage. Like if you fall back, you can sometimes be sitting there and not fall back through and you're cooked, or you fall back through and you're winning because you got to reform and into a line or something. And you're like, now the guy's like, why should I follow up? I'm going to take 16 supporting attacks or something. And you're like, it's just I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it goes, but I came away thinking that's just how it's played now. And I don't mind so much. Like I don't play those sorts of armies anyway, and had wanted to play, like use 1K as a way to sort of play that sort of army. And I just thought, I don't really enjoy this either anymore. I like I like the shooting. I like the magic. I like the flying. It's just the game at the moment.
It's reliable. They're the reliable parts of the game at the moment.
They're
and
reliable.
Like you can put a lot of faith in a block of infantry and then you whiff your first round and fall back in good order away. And it's like, but when you're rolling,
and you usually have to move for 3 turns with your faith in them. So you'll like march for 8 inches. You'll march for another 8, and then the skirmisher will, hopefully your video on musicians comes out soon, Paddy. But if you whack a musician in there, it's a done deal, and it's they're marching 10 inches to the side.
Yeah, they just go whoop
out of your arc,
and they're just like, where'd they go?
I know.
It's a bit silly, but look, all in all, I think we're still enjoying the game a lot, and 1K will definitely still be a factor in our experience in the old world. I think it definitely serves a purpose, and I still think there's room for that kind of 3-tiered tournament, which we were talking about before, 1,015 to 1,000 points, with a similar list, but that's for another chat. I would like to just take the moment. We did just mention Dave, Silver Dave, in fact, who is one of our 2+ supporters. So thank you very much, Dave. And our other 2+ supporters were Ghost, Sick, Jeff, and the big dog Gomo from Old World Fanatics, arguably probably the most influential Australian old world player. I'll butter him up.
He'd
while
love
he's
that,
listening.
wouldn't he?
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
made it.
You can.
He's
Well,
got to
yeah,
have a
exactly.
moniker, some sort of nickname. There's always ones like the Podfather, and they're already taken. We're gonna have to come up with something like
We'll
backhanded.
We'll get him something. He's coming to Oldhammer along with Andrew, who's that's 2 out of the 3 old one.
Is he
fanatics.
Flying in?
Yeah, he's probably on his jet or
Chopper.
something. He probably finds a way to jet ski down from Newcastle.
Ooh, God, I'd be intimidated if he came in off a jet ski.
Yeah, with his models.
Like he's not ruffled by double ones. Probably a vest.
Yeah. But thank you to everybody who so far is supporting us, not just these guys, but all of our YouTube subscribers as well. If you're not already, please take the moment to like, comment, subscribe on our videos. It really does go a long way. And if you are interested in supporting us, there's one tier of Patreon and YouTube membership supporter that we have there. If you'd like to give us a bit of extra help to keep this going, we greatly appreciate it, and it does go a long way. So thank you everyone so far. But there is something else. There's 2 other things really we want to talk about. There's a tournament that just happened in Sydney recently called Clash of the Reich, or On the Reich, I believe, which happened in Cherrybrook, northwestern suburbs near us. And there was a bit of a fallout from there due to, it's kind of 2-part. One, the tournament pack suggested a type of event that it was going to be, which was don't go for max net listing. This is I don't think the words were casual, but like think about your lists and whether people are going to want to play against them. And if they are one of those lists that people don't want to play against, then don't bring them or taper it down a bit. And a few got through the list building process and submitted some pretty strong lists that ruffled a few people's feathers. Once the rosters got revealed and the pairings got revealed, there was some double dragons, a massive gun line from Nuln, a Screams list, a lot of dragons everywhere. The only comp idea in it, I think, I haven't seen the tournament pack, but you told me that you could only have 1 level 4 or 1 level 3, but no character point cap outside of the 50% restriction. So that naturally leads itself to more monsters. And it led to a handful of people dropping out once those pairings were revealed, which was, excuse me, that was interesting to me because I think events and tournaments, whatever you want to call them, people are going to go to these if the pack allows them to win the tournament. And if the TO sets parameters and allows a list and the list is allowed, then they should be able to play. And people probably need to respect that. Not probably, I think they do have to respect that. But I looked through all the lists and I did think there was maybe like 4 really strong lists. But I think the rest of the field was pretty good. There were definitely like competitive lists, but they weren't all maxed out. They weren't all optimized. And I think there was a few, as you see at every tournament, at the bottom, which were like super weak. And that's fine as well. These were players that wanted to bring thematic armies. I think there was one that had like 3 units of 20 orcs. And that's just not going to cut it in the old world in any tournament. But that person wanted to play them and brought them. And I would guess still had a really good time because everyone we have spoken to from our Western City Wargamers group, a few people went there. And they, despite the list and despite 2 of them coming up against one of the Uber lists, they still both said they had a really good day. And I think it's this difficult situation that TOs are in and players are in, where list building is so divided at the moment in terms of power between factions that if there is no comp, you kind of have to just accept that it's happening and you have to turn up, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there just should. I think comp. We're in this cycle at the moment where it went from Warhammer needs comp to it's now another comp podcast. But I think that comp is just the way of keeping the community alive. Like we are going to be like the world's just become decentralized with the internet, and you probably spend, like, while we are hooked up online, where I don't think I'll ever really play anyone outside of Sydney. I just can't see myself traveling. Maybe I'll get lucky and go somewhere once in a couple of years to do something that probably involves Warhammer and a whole lot of other things on the same weekend. So I think that you're stuck with these sorts of like 50 people that you might play with or whatever. And yes, of course, you want the same rules to apply and there to be less friction at the table, but the rules as they stand from the 1K cause the most problems there. Like people were literally holding their own versions of the rule book saying, I think I'm right. Like on Loser Gives Ground, for example. But I think that at the same time, yeah, like if the don't be a dick thing is sort of dead, you got to be more explicit. There's a group of people who know a lot more about the game who are going to these tournaments. It used to be a bit more exotic net decking, net listing, whatever you want to call it, where people would take it's so easy to find the good list now. And if people just want to turn up and win, I think the gap is so much larger. And I don't know, like you don't want to have someone I didn't want them to have even one bad game for 3 hours, let alone two on a day. But mostly if they don't want to come to your event, I think it's worth listening to why that is. And I think as blunt as it might be, from a tournament organizer's point of view, it's just bums on seats. So if 6 people dropped, are you just preserving 2 people and their lists for those 6 people? If 2 people had dropped and 12 people had super hard lists, well, maybe that's just the state of the game. But I think there's a little bit of fatigue. It's getting very samey. I mean, even the elf lists are like dragon plus level 4. You know, like even if you're high elves, dark elves, or wood elves, you're sort of like, I think most of us think that's the way to go. Like probably even chaos, that might be a type of chaos army that's done well. I don't think there's as much diversity at the moment as you'd like. And hopefully it just hangs on a bit and we see some of the stuff with, say, Winter Warfare, where I think they've made some pretty solid gains on some unobtrusive changes. Maybe not elegant, but like they're sort of keeping people playing, and I think they're up to 40 people today for the next one, so they're doing something right.
Congrats to them, and we're going to go through their tournament pack after we chat about this tournament. But I did want to share, because my point that I'm trying to make is that we're at the stage of Warhammer the Old World where we know what the game is. At least if you're a regular tournament goer, it'll
beautiful
be
cobblestones, Paddy. Yeah, gets me every time.
And this is what I want to show, because it's so much more, and it's so, and we're both guilty of getting like down in the dumps of a bad game. When you
absolutely,
it's tough when you invest that much time into stuff and you get smashed by, not even smashed, but you come up against a list that you probably can't beat without something going terribly in your favor, incredibly in your favor. But when you look at boards like this and ignore the pile of grey here, because I think that's the null list, and I think like that burns me a lot more than someone turning up with 3 cannons and 3 war wagons and 3 hellblast volley guns.
You even got like the Hogwarts side.
Yeah,
it's come on, man.
That to me is a lot more impactful than a bad list. I would hate it so much more if there was a really powerful list that someone didn't bother to paint, but they just wanted a really strong list. But if you look at the board and the amount of effort that this TO has put in terms of terrain, like, good Lord, look at this mat. Look at, like, I don't know how I'd love to literally find out how to do this, because it makes the game so much more enjoyable. Some of this terrain, I swear, has to be homemade. I'm pretty positive about.
It's probably a club. I know this is an institution, the event, so clubs have this sort of stuff, and it is like, but it takes a long time to build it up, and it's hard to run. Like, I think we've priced it. It's like $250 to buy the stuff for a table, let alone, paint it and glue it all together, and all of that costs a lot of money as well.
Yeah. I mean, just look, mushroom forests over here. You've got the Lord of the Rings
Stalin or someone,
guys.
Oh, is it?
It could be Stalin, but I went for the 2 things that are guarding the river in Lord of the Rings. But hey, to each their own. But like, there's so much to enjoy about this board anyway. And I did see a lot of photos from this tournament. It was consistent across the board. This is what the mats look like, which is
they look
half
great.
the game, honestly. So
That's what I regret not going is for the mats.
Totally. I was jealous when I saw the terrain. Definitely.
Oh, look at those mushrooms, so good.
What you can see is that it looks bloody good. Like both, despite the pale of grey on the first one, the maps, the models, people have put a lot of effort in. It still looks like Warhammer, and it still would have felt good seeing the models on the table. And I think, despite the people dropping out in revolt because of the powerful lists at the top, I think there's so much more to Warhammer than just the really strong lists at the top. And people are going to these tournaments for different reasons, and the TOs need to kind of figure out what that is. And the TOs should be empowered to create an event that they want to hold and attract the type of people that they want to play Warhammer. But yeah, I suppose it's an example of the fraught nature of being a TO. It's difficult.
Yeah, it is. It sucks, like in that sense, that people have expectations. I think you just have to be clear. Like, there's things I'll put in the next pack. I've been very lucky with even things like refunds. People haven't really been big on that. And there is a point in time where if you have to give the money back, it becomes a bit prickly. So that sort of stuff you don't think about when you're just trying to organize a Warhammer tournament. But underneath that, you've really got to be quite locked into the metagame to understand where we're sort of at with that. And that for some people, I'm at that point, and having played Dragons, like I certainly played it at the last one because I thought, oh, this is probably it. It's just getting very boring and it's unkillable, and you point it and it kills things. And that's what I did on that day mostly. I think that with that, we're getting to the point with some things where maybe we're going to have to see some aggressive comp, not so much because we're trying to fix the game, but you're just trying to keep everybody in the tent. That's all. Like, if 6 people want to play and they don't want to play against Dragons, you weigh that up against, okay, does it matter? Like, for example, if Oldhammer are going to run a 3-round 40-person event and 5 people could end up 3-0, like, it's never been a problem for me. For other people, they're like incredibly frustrated by that. It's like, okay, like, you know, maybe this isn't for you. And I think that's just what it is. It's really just, I don't think we're out of the woods with the game that you want people to lose steam, because that tends to have a bit of a domino effect or a bit of a contagious effect. People are enjoying it, and just take them seriously if they say this, and there might not be anything you can do about it. But if you can, you know, screams, null, they're pretty much armies where the other person moves and then loses or not, depending on what you do, like in some ways. And that might just be something where you just go, okay, well, like these armies, at least a dragon sort of flies around and you hope it whiffs compared to some of the other stuff.
Yeah. You mentioned the old
Anyway,
Hammer.
but it is good.
Yeah. You mentioned the old Hammer.
It's been good mostly.
And they're running their 5th tournament now and have done a great job in Western Sydney. You've heard us talk about them. You've heard the Old World Behemoths maybe talking about them as well. Old World Fanatics have started coming along as well. And they're drawing a lot of adulation, praise for how they're running.
Adulation.
I'm channeling my inner Alistair here. I think I've got 2 buzzwords out, and I'm pretty proud of it.
By dint of adulation.
By dint of adulation. But this is their next installment, which has been their 5th tournament on the 21st of June, which is Winter Warfare. And there's a few key points in this pack, which I think it's a great pack. I think there's some additions in here that have been sorely needed in the old world and have had a great effect on my list building process. But we'll quickly run through. We've gone through the first scenario in our previous episode, but some usual things in here: 2,000 points, 3 of 1 unit, 6 in core. Renegade pack is allowed, which is interesting, and might affect who you are bringing. Again, without,
I think it definitely will affect it.
Definitely will. Which, read between the lines for anyone there. But this is a massive one, and probably my favorite part of the whole pack, which is 25% total character limit, meaning 500 points in a 2,000 point setting, which is so refreshing. because the characters are so powerful in the top lists. I think we've kind of been speaking about it. It brings almost all of them back to par, I think, because Warriors of Chaos, you can bring a dragon or a level 4. You can't bring both. Bretonia,
And the
you can't.
dragon's not
It's not souped up. Bretonia, you can't bring your 1,000 points of characters that do all the damage. Vampire counts, you can't bring 2 Mortis engines, I presume, plus a vampire on a big dude. But Tomb Kings is maybe still the grey area, we think, where it probably doesn't affect.
Yeah, I think that's to do with just the general cheapness of Tomb Kings, sadly. Yeah. And Mortuary Cults, you can probably do level 4 and like a level 2 or something, and level 3 or something like that. They'd be on foot, at least.
But I think we both agree this is probably where the game stays. If not, it might push out to 30% or something like that. I can't see it getting back to 50% at tournaments, at least that I go to.
I think 25% is the right number.
Yeah.
I think Square-based early, he talked about, Rob thought 20%. And I think 25% just works well with the other cutoffs. So what it does is really spend those points on special. You can't really get any more rare points than you're already using.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky enough to have so if you're lucky enough to have a core like Beastman where you sometimes want to go over, okay, but generally you're taking the 25% extra that you spent on Lords and you're deciding on whether or not to take 1 Lord or 2 heroes. And then you're going into the whole, you're spending it on special, that 25%, which is meaning that the lists that you see are more diverse, which I'm always a fan of. But also, before that, I just wouldn't spend anything on special. I would spend 50% on core, 50% on characters, 25 on rare, and then 25 on core. I would just not do special unless they were better than the rare units like pegs.
Yeah, it's funny how special across the board almost is where the flavorful units that suck are.
Yeah.
They're
definitely, there's some...
and
that's where I'm not playing high elves because the flavorful unit is so much flavor and so much suck. There's literally nothing in there. Dragon Princess being impetuous was the last. I can't play anything impetuous ever again.
Yeah,
last 2 tournaments I've had them, and they've just. Silver Dave has led me around like a prized pig. Did they get led around? Maybe like a dog at a dog show.
No, my warboars aren't impetuous, so I'm happy about that. There's another great part in this, which kudos to Old Hammer crew. They had this at the last 2 tournaments, I want to say 2, where armies must be painted to a battle-ready standard. Any unfinished, unpainted armies will not be eligible for prizes except for the sportsmanship and the wooden hammer, which, when you're investing so much time in this game, to turn up against a grey pile, it's so deflating, and it makes it so much less enjoyable. I think the vast majority of the people that play Warhammer play it for the immersion factor. It's not just maths with dice. It's about a fantasy setting that looks cool with awesome terrain and shows off a creative side of people. And when it's not returned after you've put effort in, it's just crushing for me anyway.
Yeah. I think Nalngai has probably killed that forever now.
Yeah.
I know Adam lost prestige and possibly some money by having unpainted models. Did he win the last one or the one before?
He won the one before. Before. I tell you what, he was almost fully painted at the next one. Almost.
Yeah, but I just think that you're right. I don't think any of the events will run. I would allow unpainted miniatures anymore. I've thought about before saying you've got to send a photo of your army, but that seems a bit
it's a bit
predatory.
I think some people just aren't very good painters, and you don't want to. But at least as long as they paint, I think I'd turn up.
Yeah, look, I think what I'm pumping out is pretty much 6 out of 10. So I'm definitely a tabletop standard guy.
Says the winner of Best Painted at Old Hammer 1, but hey, that's for another pod.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know where that medal is. I should have worn it for this one. I should have just
dangle it. It just but we spoke about, and we have tested this first scenario, which is the 2 towers, which is a map that has 2 towers in the middle of the board. Capture it by putting a unit 10 strength maximum unit of infantry in the tower. They hold it, they can capture it, and then only infantry or flyers can charge the tower, but no flyers can actually get the points. They can push people out of the tower, but they
It's
can't capture it.
complicated, Paddy.
Yeah.
It's even more complicated than you think. But
Yeah.
it makes a huge difference, and I think controlling the tower or towers is going to be what wins you the game. If you can get both, it's 1,000 kill points on their scale, which is the other. Well, there's two other things I think we're going to reinforce. But yeah, I think you can't ignore the towers. In other old hammers, you could ignore the scenario and just try to smash the person and still do all right. I don't think you can this time.
No, we played this scenario. You were beastmen, I was wood elves. I spent 5.5 turns running away. You spent 5.5 turns with 2 units in the towers. And we ended up drawing on kill points, and you ended up holding one of the towers and winning based on objective points. And I think that'll be a consistent theme come
I do too.
Winter Warfare, which is awesome and a great example of how it can't just be a vibe running a tournament. Like, they are creating a setting that affects list building without saying you cannot bring this unit.
It's just very clever. Like, there's stuff in there. It's made infantry good, but there's even things like Badland ogres that
can take a banner.
have just. They can take a banner, and they're monstrous infantry. So monstrous infantry are really good for this. But not many armies have good monstrous infantry. So you're looking at, like, there's just some interesting things that it does, and it's not the same as the other two. So you're having to hedge. And I think when we talk about it at the end, that maybe 200 to 400 points, like 20% of what I've twisted to try to be able to contest these, or to have, more. I don't think even just an advantage, just to compete on these scenario points.
Yeah, I struggled massively in our game because I didn't really have the means. I did have the means, but I didn't have the momentum to capture them. And it was really hard for me to get those points back. But let's move on to game 2, which is Battlefield Superiority, where the player with the most standard bearers wholly within a table quarter controls it. Musicians break ties, then moves on to unit strength to break the tie. Fleeing units do not count. Bonus for controlling 1 or more zones, 1 bonus point. Bonus for controlling more than your opponent, 3 bonus points. And all these bonus points are going to... We'll get to the point scale in a second, but you'll see how impactful 1 bonus point is in this adjusted point scale. But you can see also, I think this is an adjusted form of meeting engagement or something, maybe. I think I saw that, maybe making that up. But it's a narrow deployment zone with a flank that's open on both sides, a forest in front of each deployment zone, and impassable terrain on either side, and you both get a hill. What do you think about this scenario? Standard bearers the key, not core, for example. Standard bearers. Let's just take that point first. So the previous scenario didn't involve standard bearers. This one does. What do you think about that?
I think it's hard to do. It seems like things just go well, and people tend to take. So if you're too defensive, you both get 2 or both get 1 in the end, if it's a bit of a bloodbath. But 3 for controlling more, really, that's always going to be 3-1. So you can't really have 2 and control more. So the person's going to get.
No, you could.
It's either going to be a tie,
0, couldn't you? Like if the person has 1, then you have 2.
Yeah, so you'll then get 3 battle points, and they'll get 1. So you're going to get a +2 out of it, and that's 500 kill points. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that could be good. Like, you could see some of these drawish things and maybe play for like 1/4 of their board. Probably the armies I'll be playing, that's more likely to happen.
Do you think people will bring more standard bearers than we normally see because of this scenario and the next one?
I think that there are armies that find it easier to bring more standards, like Orcs and Goblins, probably Empire, maybe even Bretonnia, to tell you the truth, at 25% characters. But you need to, I don't think they're sort of top tier armies, the ones that can take a lot of standards. So I think it starts to even things out. The next scenario is wilder in terms of standards. I think this one will be a bit more. That one will be a bit more of an arm wrestle.
I'm still confused with this one of the wording, so you can explain it to me. Units with a standard bearer score at the end of the game. Bonus for having a standard bearer partially or wholly within your opponent's deployment zone equals 1 battle point. Bonus for having having more standard bearers than your opponent equals 3 battle points. Captured banners do not count. So I'm going to play the fool here because I'm getting confused with the words. But bonus for having a standard bearer partially or wholly within your opponent's deployment zone, 1 battle point.
Yeah.
And then just purely having standard bearers. So if I have 3 standard bearers left on the table and you have 2,
you get 3.
I get 3 plus 1 if one of them's in there.
Yeah.
4.
But I might get the 1 as well if my one is over there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that one to me justifies my list that is bringing.
That's what we're going to play, right? We'll play on Friday in the spirit of our fallen comrade. Well, not comrades. God, I've got on the Stalin vibe from the statue, but on the Anzac Day in Gallipoli, and the tragedy of running headlong at your opponent is going to be on full display, because you're going to have, if you've got 7, which you're alleging, and I have 4, but really sort of 3.5. I'm going to have to gun for them, because that's a lot of standards to make up for 750 kill points.
Yeah, so this is the clincher for me with the whole pack, which initially I was like, oh, I don't like this. But then once I thought about it, I liked it a lot more. So just quickly, all forests are dangerous terrain. That is cooked.
Yeah, it's full on.
It's full
Actually,
on.
I do have a lot of move through cover in my...
Great.
Never going to get punished for this.
Nah.
Anyway.
It feels good re-rolling it, I'm not going to lie. I know. I'm the beneficiary of that. You're like, oh, never mind, I'm fine. Low linear obstacles are great to see. All buildings are impassable terrain. But this is the point I wanted to point out, where 1 victory point bonus point for kill points. You have to kill 250 points worth of units, models, to get an 11-9. That's opposed to the usual 150 point difference. So as you were explaining before, you capture 2 towers, they're worth 2 each. That's 4 bonus points. That's 1,000 bonus victory kill points, which gives you an immediate 14-10 off a draw. If you drew, you'd have a 14-10, which is massive.
It's going to be massive, yeah.
And it forces people to play the objectives, which, in my experience so far with objectives, there's been some that have hit, and I've been like, oh, this is a chance for me to score more points or something. But a lot of the time, I'm able to ignore it and just figure it out at the end, I think. But this is the real change that I think pushes you to the objectives.
I think people have just gotten better too. Like we said earlier, that the game is what it is, and it's a cagier, movement-based, points conservation game. Like, it's not just Wood Elves. Everyone's doing it to an extent. And there'll probably be people at this event who will be easy marks, in the sense that there probably will still be 20 to 4 in the first round. I think that's the maximum you can get.
Yeah.
And that might lead to someone winning that way. But if you end up with someone who's competent, which is probably over half of the players, I would say, definitely. At these events for sure. I mean, it might be higher. It might be over 2/3 of the players now who will look at a unit of Reavers and go, I'm just not going to move them out there because I'll just get killed. So I think it might be harder to get those points. I think there will be more draws or drawish results, because I just think, 500 points is quite a lot. Like, winning by 480 points is a pretty decent win to me, but that's an 11-9 on this table. And I do think it goes well with the scenarios, though. Like, I've got no complaints. And I imagine you're going to talk about the last bit at the bottom, which I'm a huge fan of.
Massive fan of. So, in addition to the normal victory point scoring, any characters, monsters, chariots, or units will give up 50% of their points if reduced to 50% or less of their starting wounds or models, which should be etched into the rules of the old world in stone and permanent marker somehow to make sure it never leaves, because 9 wounds on a dragon is fucked.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And whether it sort of brings some of them down, because it isn't so hard to get 5 wounds. It's just that deflate. It can take you the whole game. So you think, oh, why bother? Because I'll probably get 4. And so, for example, the game Chris played against me, I think he did take 3 wounds from dangerous terrain on his dragon. So then it might have been worth it to fire like the dying Silver Sisters shots at the dragon and try to get 2 more. So stuff like that is good. I do think it's clever what they've done, as we were saying earlier as well, that they're sort of responding to the community here. Like, I still think probably undead, specifically Tomb Kings, are coming through unscathed and are good, but like everything else is taking a hit, and I think that's sort of a good thing. I think bringing a dragon, fully blown dragon, to this event is going to be tough. You're going to have to give up other things, and you still might lose 50% of your points, which is probably 1 full battle point on that scale. So it's pretty good, I think. So you're coming with something new, Paddy.
Yeah. So I'll see if I can. My screen share's stuck, but I think I can transition it to this one. If you give me a second. So I've been playing Wood Elves for my I don't know how to get rid of that. Can you see both of those screens there? What if I do this?
I can see it. Yes.
There we go.
Yep,
That'll be
I
better.
can.
Oh, no, I've really
No, I can't see it anymore.
Give me a sec. Here we go like this. Share.
Yeah.
All right. But have you got like a black screen at the top there? Or can you only see one?
I can see you sharing the screen, but I think I get a different view from it. I can see your head as well.
Yeah, random.
It's beautiful.
Okay, thanks. But this is so I've been playing Wood Elves my entire Old World career, outside of a couple of Celebrity Chaos games and an Empire game. But I've got some Orc and Goblins printed, and initially I wanted to bring Nomadic War, but the tower scenario absolutely ruined that because cavalry can't take it. And I don't really want to play without playing the objectives at this tournament. But initially, I found it very difficult to land on the characters, which is awesome. This, like, the comp really reinvigorated list
Where's
building.
that shield? Can't afford it.
I can't afford the shield.
On the Wyvern.
So my Wyvern, a Wyvern, has to take a 3-up, 5-up save at best, as opposed to its usual 2-up, 5-up. But
you're gonna feel it, Paddy. Trust me.
Oh wait, does it even do that? No, because it wouldn't. It would. Oh wait, no, it is. Full plate's a 4-up save, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I have a Black Orc War Boss on a Wyvern with troll hide trousers, 309 points, which is a bargain in my eyes. That meant I couldn't afford a Orc Shaman on a War Ball, which is what I initially wanted to bring, because it's about 210 points, which is over 500 points characters. So I've had to resort to playing Grand Army and bringing a Night Goblin Odd Knob with the Ruby Ring of Ruin, no Lore Familiar. And that allows me to bring 30 Night Goblins with Fanatics and the Spider Banner for poison and short bows. Did I give him short bows? I did. Yep. And then 10 Black Orc guys to capture the towers. And did I learn that you can't charge out of the tower?
Yes.
So
I don't know why you have shields and great weapons. Aren't they?
Because it's a shooting
Motley
thing.
Crew?
Yeah.
Mm.
I still don't quite understand it.
Oh, I thought you didn't have to buy great weapons for all of them.
No, you do.
You could.
You have to buy great weapons for all of them, I think. Well, I don't know. I can't be fucked, to be honest. I know. I'm not going to sit there and go like, "Oh, that guy's the shield dude."
Put him
Just
in
make
volley
it
fire,
easy.
Paddy.
Yeah,
The marching column. Just do it.
But so does that mean if I give them frenzy, they are not forced to charge out of the tower, and they're just guys in there that have 2 attacks?
I haven't gone back to it. I just heard it from John. I trust John in these things. It's his, Willy Wonka style. Yeah, it's his thing. I just, if he's, and he's, I assume he's the judge for this event. So,
yeah. Well, you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4 banners already, Alex, in my core.
Yeah.
So
I should show you my list then.
Here we go. I've got 2 units of Wolf Riders.
2 units of Wolf Rider mobs.
One with move through cover. And they're kind of just going to play cover for my chariots.
Are they impetuous?
They are.
Okay,
So good riddance to the wolf riders. But then I come down to Chariot Town, which unfortunately I can't take.
More chariots.
I can't. This is based on what models I have currently. I can't take. You can't take Black Orc chariots in Grand Army. Otherwise, I would have 9 standard bearers. But I have an orc, another frenzy. So 2 frenzied orc chariots with an extra crew member, frenzy and war paint, and then 2 goblin wolf chariots with standard bearers.
58 points.
Yeah,
are they?
They're impetuous.
How many wounds? 4. So they don't get close order.
They don't get close order. They're open order light chariots. They have 3 wounds, toughness 4.
Jeez.
And D3 +1 impact hits with no AP. So they're totally worth 53 points. But they're essentially chaff. They're cheaper than a Great Eagle. So like,
yeah, how much? They must be move 9 or something.
Move 9.
That'll collect my favorite thing in Warhammer War Machine crews.
Move 9. Fear of Elves.
Swift Stride as well. Ooh.
Yeah. So they're just like a little bullet, which is fun. They'll probably fail Impetuous turn 1. But what I was trying to build my list around, which is kind of the flavor of the month at the moment, is this Orc Gore Boy mob that's got some combat res.
I think they're great. 300
awesome.
points. What a bargain.
Yeah. War Banner to make their charge more likely at the moment. I just kind of landed on that. I could change that. And then 2 Doom Divers, which with the Big G, one of our Patreons or YouTube members is printing for me this week.
He said he's going to meet me halfway.
What does that mean?
Yep, get your order in. No, we got to pick up. See, my order's done.
Yeah, I've placed my order, so I'm full. I
better get on him tonight because I want to paint that Merworm and bring it. I want you to play my Sea Guard 1,000-point Sea Guard list. It's good.
But that is where I'm at currently, and as we know, list building goes through a lot of phases.
It's been good though. It's because that's where I always shrink back towards playing High Elves because they're just Sisters of Avalon are just amazing. People still haven't got the memo. I think I've seen Ed start to play with them in Worlds. They're just they're in at least the A range, if not S range of units according to those sorts of tiers. However, you can't do it because the special's just it's garbage, and you're gonna have to. Your level 4s would be there to dispel. Can't really do much of the good dispelling like the Wood Elf one or the Vampire one can, or even Infernal Puppet. So I think they're actually. I don't know how good High Elves can even be at 25% characters, but that's not such a bad thing. Thought about playing Demons, which I'd love to, but I don't know, played them on the weekend. They're just like High Elves in a sense, fragile shooting. There's some fun stuff, like the Greater Demons are more playable than people think. The Renegade Pack. I don't know if the Renegade Pack did a lot for Demons as much as people think. Like it made some things easier.
The 5+ ward save's nice, but I don't think it's...
Yeah, it was like you were sort of getting it and you would come up against armies that you wouldn't get it, but it's not like you run it out there thinking, oh, I've got the 5+, I'll be okay. You've got no armor on pretty much everything. So I think on top of that, it's just, there's just not a lot of endurance or resilience in any of it. Like you can maybe take Plague Bearers and they move for garbage infantry. So, I don't know. Demons were still there. Beastmen, I think, are good. I'd probably play Beastmen if I wasn't going to be playing Lizardmen on Friday and the comeback, because I think that the Slann changes are too good. And that'll be interesting. Like, I don't think it makes them broken, but I just think they probably stretched it to make it good, when instead of like everything else was sort of done in the character of Old World, I think the Slann they've sort of contorted to make it a better version. I guess part of the theme of the pack was to make things like the Doom Wheel, Cauldron of Blood, that sort of stuff, and the Palanquin part of the Slann was like evocative. But I think what they've given it has made it more than just, I think it's now a good caster. So I can probably show that list if you want, Paddy. I feel like ashamed to hang on to it. See if I can get it up.
If you've got a tab, share it up. Are you locked in? Is this definitely what you're taking? Is this a grand
This
reveal?
is what I'm taking on Friday against you, and it's what I would like to take. So, I've got Wand of Jet, which I think is my trick because of the new rerolls. I should be able to control.
Wand of Jet, is that reroll of Dispel?
+1 to cast or to dispel. So whenever you cast a spell or dispel, you get +1. But when you roll a double, it burns out.
Mm-hmm.
So if you roll a double, it's over. So to me, you can now reroll when you're rolling to cast and when you're rolling to dispel if you use Becoming Cogitation. So I can sort of maybe control that double a bit longer. Mostly I want it to dispel.
Have you got that
+1 to
checked
dispel
by Tio? By John or
I can. I don't think you can reroll miscast full stop.
Yeah.
But you should be able to reroll it. There's no reason you can't reroll one of the other ones, and because it's the end result.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So elementalism, I just need Plague of Rust, which will become obvious later. You get 5 spells now, so maybe I won't get Plague of Rust, but Travel Mystical Pathway has always been really good with Lizardmen too. And I think I'm a big Wind Blast fan for lots of reasons, like moving things back. I just like the Strength 5 stuff. You don't have access to it in Lizardmen. But I need the Battle Standard for lots of reasons too later. So Becoming Cogitation is like the Super Dispeller, +3 inches, and you can reroll 1. So it's like a mini Oaken Stave.
Yeah.
And then the Skink Priest is there to be like an Arcane Vassal to try to shoot things through. And I just think you got to take Ruby Ring still. And I'm now better with this. Yeah, I think you just got to take it. It's sad. I'd probably be thinking of trying to find a way to ban that, to tell you the truth. Everyone runs it in every list. But I think with those evade rules and the can't target stuff, when I was playing Lizardmen before, I had no idea how to do that. Now I think it's probably more possible to do that, hide it, because I'm going to be running scads of Skinks. I've come down to 12 Temple Guard. There's the War Banner, the -2 Magic Res thing. Really, it's just to get 6.5 plus 6.5 to try to fend off anything, because you've got the challenge mechanic. So if they attack a guy, they're going to have to deal with the full-blown... if they do the 6 wounds, I still think I've got +6. Again, the Slan just fluffs out your rank bonus. It's, pretty ridiculous.
Okay.
And, against you, I'll try Jungle Swarms, because the alternative is to run 2 more units of 10 Skinks. We'll find out later, if I need to do that or not, and just run Poison. But I like the double skirmishes.
Cold One Riders, baby.
Cold One Riders. So 2 standards, the Sneaky Temple Guard standard and the Slan standard, which you can sort of shoot out at the end, and the Slan could take a tower if you had to, I suppose, as well. But yeah, Cold Ones are back, aren't they? I don't think I would. I'm not sure they're that great if this wasn't a standard bearer tournament. People yeah, I can run Cold Ones. I'm I don't know. They don't have counter charge. They don't have much AP. There's something else. They don't have first charge. So you're just getting a toughness 4. Yeah, you're getting a lot of tough strength 4 attacks, which is a big deal. Yeah. But that's what you're getting them for. So really, they're going to try to. It's drilled. And just try to get right around extreme flanks.
41 points. 41 points. What the fridge? That's crazy. It's because they have Cav Spears, not Lancers, right?
Yeah. So that's a huge problem. Huge problem. Because you only get the -1 AP. So they're not... I think the trick is they're not your heavy hitters.
No.
They just... And that's probably the problem with the Lizardmen list was that it's not... Everything else is good. I didn't think they were as bad as everyone said. The Slam is just really, really expensive. And you have to have a level 4. Because I'm going to run more Chameleon Skinks. They're pretty reliable. I'll only have 40 reliable poison shots against you, but I could get up to 60. I think... I don't know. Hedge... Are people going to bring dragons? Poison, I still think, is the best answer against big things. Or even Iron Demon, for example. Poison's just the best way, even through the 3+ armor. Hopefully Plague of Rust up. But yeah, ultimately, Stegs are what do the damage. Carnosaur is the best unit for killing things, but you can't afford it anymore. Yeah. So one of the Stegs will have the Fireball thing, which will probably always be dispellable, but it gives the +1 to cast. So it'll probably sit between that and the Skink that's 12 inches away trying to channel Wind Blast through its body. And the other Steg just strength 6, stomps. That's where it's
The
at.
Saints are good.
Toughness
Yeah.
6. Yeah, they're good. They get cannons. They get hit by cannonballs, but otherwise they're good. Can't complain. They're the next best thing in the list. I think Carnosaurs, Skinks, Degadons, and the Slan now. They're all the sort of playable stuff.
Love it.
Whole
Love
bunch
to
of
see
superfluous.
Lizardmen returning is an awesome vibe. Gotta love that.
Yeah, I think so. Like, there's still other stuff. Like, it's funny just getting rid of the Saurus, or you could do.
Yeah.
Sadly, a lot of their fun units are just not that playable, like Croxagore, Pterodons. Pterodons are okay. You just don't need them.
Be a hero and run a salamander, Alex. I dare you.
Why didn't they give a column of fire? So this does nothing to improve it. Like, you should have some sort of like beam, some sort of fire beam, like the gaze, burning gaze. It just has burning gaze now, like 18 inches of fire line. So,
well, that's awesome. That's good. I think that plays well into the tournament pack as well. And I think you're right. The Slime Mage is legit.
Yeah, I think it's good. Yeah,
I think you're right that it was just expensive before. I don't think there was necessarily anything wrong with it apart from it was really expensive. Yeah,
I really liked the whole sit behind, fire over the top, the 18-inch BSB. I used to run it as ethereal. Like, the initial version where they let you have 2 disciplines, I was more excited about that because I could do ethereal and the dispel thing.
Yeah.
But it's probably unkillable in the unit that it's in, but it just, like, it's not going to assail anything. I sort of liked it with a weapon for Spectral Doppelganger as well. Like, I would still rather run Illusion if I could hit things with it, but because it works better through the Skink with Miasmic Mirage. But I like the Wand of Jet thing. I think it's good. I think it's good to see Wand of Jet get played. It's sort of the last good magic item. Maybe Giant Blade. Giant Blade gets in a lot of lists, though. I think every other good magic item's sort of been found a home somewhere, and I think this one's a pretty good one.
Nice. Well, yeah, I think this is going to wrap up the episode, but kind of ending on the point that and for anyone who's on the blue Facebook page, Facebook Warhammer, the Old World page, Abe, one of the star contributors of that channel, posted an article the other day about Games Workshop losing control of their game, and I haven't dived into the reaction because we've been scarred before, but I imagine it ruffled a lot of feathers. But it was interesting to me that people are still in Games Workshop's corners with like rules writing and tournament organizing and stuff. They, in my opinion, have put out a rule set that's not complete, so it's on the community to rebuild it and run events and run tournaments with structures around the type of Warhammer that people want to play and that they want to see. Yeah. And I think there's more energy behind the community than there is from Games Workshop. I was in our Discord, the chat came up, and it's so clear to me that Games Workshop is more focused of making and selling models, and the community is focused on buying those models but playing a good game. And those are the people that should be entrusted to fix it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think Games Workshop do when you take the emotion out of it, and what I would want to do if I owned Games Workshop, they do what a corporate juggernaut does. Like they've become an even bigger corporate juggernaut because they make corporate decisions and they make the right decisions that are in the interest of their shareholders. And they're like, I mean, lots of people say they make the right decisions. They've clearly made them. They're just making money hand over fist. And they, a lot of this stuff is about controlling IP and those things. And that has zero bearing on how we have to play the game. So I really, grateful, like, with the momentum from Square-based to do the Renegade pack, because that's where they're using that level of influence they have to do something to improve the game. And for people saying waiting for Games Workshop to solve their problems, they've never done that. They've never done it. Like, it's not even like, oh, they should do it. They just don't. That's not what they do. They put the models out. The models are the best quality. Like, as someone who prints, I'm always envious because when I pick up stuff secondhand, it's great quality. They put out the Cathay thing. People just wet their pants straight away. Like, they're just like, how could they be sitting in a boardroom saying, let's do things differently, guys. There's 5 guys on the internet who think
Yeah.
that should have one less initiative. It's like Cathay, people just completely like lost their minds as soon as it came out. And, so they're doing everything that makes perfect sense. And I think what people are doing, and, and we've said it a lot, but Oldhammer, I think, are doing a great job. I would be interested in other parts of the world that I think Oldhammer has sustained at that trajectory of over 30, now 40 people, like every couple of months.
They've essentially doubled. They've doubled the first one was 20, right? Or so 20.
16.
Oh, 16.
And then
so
24, maybe 20, 24.
Over doubled their first tournament in a year. They're now at 40, which is a huge indication that what they're doing is working. And they've been the ones in Sydney, I think, that have been proactive and creative in tournament packs. And they set a great vibe. And that's why people are coming back. When they relist it, it almost sells out immediately because the returning player base is so huge and that's because of like people only come back if you're doing a good job. So they must be doing something right.
And I think like in the sense that you need people who are interested in the new armies or the models to keep playing, but that doesn't look like it's going anywhere. If anything, I'm shocked at how fast they're ramping this up now. As someone who's like been a cynic of Games Workshop, like in the sense that they've been disjointed, they've just rammed out this like Wood Elf Beastman Cathay lineup. The rumors, I don't know how much faith to put in the rumors that people are reporting during the week that are all over the shop, like in terms of rules updates, later factions, that sort of stuff. But yeah, I just think, as we said at the top, it can't just be a vibe. Games Workshop has its vibe. Like there's an excitement and an envy, and we're now at the point where, like, particularly me, I can afford whatever I want, like in terms of an army, and I could find things to complain about Games Workshop. They just are what they are, but they're never going to fix those rules because, like, everyone also has different ideas about what the game should be. You've got this hardcore group of people, particularly online, who are just going to not want to play less than 50% characters, but I can't see us ever going back. I reckon after this event, people are going to be like, right, yeah, that's it. Okay, because we've probably played it more than anybody else, and it's just so much better.
Yeah.
So it's just so much more going on. So there's that too, and I think people can be more. List design is such a fun part of the game that people have to normalize that for this tournament, this is the abstract list problem that we all get to talk about for 2 weeks. And old mate will turn up with his army and he won't read the pack beforehand, but he's not driving these conversations. He's not as into the game as other people. So let them have their fun. Let us talk endlessly on the internet about nothing.
Yeah. But we will stop right there because we have talked endlessly for a while about that. So thank you, everyone who's still with us, and thank you anyone who's been watching and following us along the way. Again, if you would like to support the channel, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing on this. Engage with us. There's a free Discord in the link to this description, and all the details of our Patreon are also in the description of the video as well. We will be back again with more chats, and we'll have a little debrief probably of our prep for Oldhammer as we get closer in about a month's time when it's hitting us. So Alex, thanks again, and we'll be back soon.